Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Love and Law by Monique. Narrated by Benjamin Charles. Episode 1. Jameson Edwards and Amina Black. 1. Sunday dinner. "Sorry I'm late," Jameson announced, rushing into the dining room. He took his usual spot next to his father, Thomas Edwards, Jr., who nodded his head in understanding. Jaslyn, his sister, snorted and stabbed at the cabbage on her plate. Jameson was the oldest of 4, and for as long as he could remember, Sunday dinners were mandatory in the Edwards household. The only time he'd gotten out of being a part of them was when he served his country 6 years ago in the Marines. "You got something to say, Jazz?" "Yeah. You've been late for the past 3 Sundays. What's up with that?" Jaslyn stuffed her mouth with some of the savory roast their grandfather Thomas Edwards Sr. made, while awaiting her big brother's response. Jaslyn, the second oldest of the Edwards gang, liked to get Jameson riled up from time to time. She knew his job as a detective for the New York Police Department was draining and never-ending. As one of the senior assistant district attorneys in the Manhattan DA's office, she felt as if she lived in the courtroom. "I'm not feeding into you today." "What?" Jordan choked, dropping his fork while his twin, Josephina, slapped him on the back. "Since when don't you feed into her?" "Yeah. Are you sick?" Josephina co-signed, smirking. The twins were still a pain in the ass to their older siblings, even at 29 years old. Jameson ignored them and turned to their father. "Pop, have you ever heard of Mateo King?" Before he was able to respond, Jordan asked, "Mateo as in the head of the King crime family?" Jordan, a DEA agent stationed in the Manhattan field office, had gone serious. "Yeah. You know him?" "Everyone knows him," Josephina said, joining in on the conversation. Her playful spirit had also dwindled. Or should I say, his son, Mateo Jr. He took over for his father 6 months ago. "How would you know that?" Jaslyn asked, staring at her sister accusingly. "What? Because I'm just a crime scene investigator, I shouldn't know these things?" "No one." "All right, that's enough," their father cut in. He was so used to their bickering that he hadn't put much effort into stopping them. Thomas caught the gaze of his father, the man they all affectionately called Gramps, across the table, and they spoke with their eyes. Let them have at it, they determined. "No, Dad. I'd love to hear what Ms. High Almighty over there has to say." The two sisters had always gone toe-to-toe growing up, neither backing down to the other. "Because, last I checked, it's because of me and my team that you won your last 3 cases." "And I'm not taking that away from you," Jaslyn said, deciding to change course for once. Now wasn't the time or place for them to be at each other's throats. "Let me rephrase my question. How did you get your information about Mateo's namesake taking over?" "I would like to know, too," Jameson said. "Last week, I got handed a case, and all signs are pointing to someone in the King camp, but I have no real leads." His gut was telling him that he was purposely being pointed in the wrong direction. Josephina glanced at their grandfather, who stays quiet these days when work comes up at the dinner table, and he nodded. As a retired NYPD detective, Gramps enjoyed not being stressed over catching the latest bad guy, but in this instance, he knew his granddaughter would only talk if he gave the go-ahead. "I saw Gramps and Mateo Sr. having lunch about 7 months ago." The table fell eerily silent as everyone let what that could possibly mean settle in. "Before you all start getting ideas, I've known Mateo since we were young boys. It was a friendly lunch in which he confided in me about his health. Fina walked up and heard that part of the conversation. Later on, she confronted me about the meeting with him, and we had a conversation that will stay between us. So, basically, you put two and two together. Josephina nodded in answer to her sister's question. If she had opened her mouth to actually speak the words, it would have made her lie that much more worse. But she couldn't tell her family the truth. At least, not yet. "Pop, you can't be seen around town meeting with crime lords," Thomas said. "How would that look if someone caught wind that the police commissioner's father is having frivolous meetings with the head of one of the biggest crime families in New York?" Gramps shrugged, completely unbothered by what was being said. He didn't answer to anyone, nor did he let his son or grandchildren's jobs move him to change. He'd been the same when he was on the force. You either took the old man as he was, or not at all. "That's not my problem, Commissioner." He knew, just like everyone else at the table, that this wasn't about the lunch for his son. Over the last 4 or 5 decades, there had been 2 crime families making a name for themselves in New York and the surrounding areas. If they were of any other race, it would be business as usual. But because they had heavily melanated skin, their rise was watched with more scrutiny. It didn't matter that the Italians had been doing it for centuries. That was normal. A black family making waves was a problem, legal or illegal. The same scrutiny fell on Thomas when he took over as the police commissioner 2 years ago. A black man with the power that the PC holds over the NYPD is dangerous. What would happen if people thought they were on the wrong side of the law? There was a fine line between the two, and Thomas wanted to stay on the right side for more reasons than one. In the last few years, the Edwards had been dubbed the first black family of law enforcement. In truth, they'd been in this business for generations. The world was just finally catching up. People loved them, but there were also many who didn't. It was a blessing and a curse to have the last name Edwards. Jameson left dinner confused about which end of that he was on when it came to Mateo King and his newly appointed empire. The streets of New York were moving in slow motion in Jameson's mind as he walked briskly toward the scene, drawing a large crowd. There was a hostage situation taking place right on the street for everyone to see, but that had been the assailant's objective. As Jameson neared the scene, he flashed his badge and was given access to cross. "Do you see this shit?" his partner Marcus asked, never taking his eyes off the black man holding a white man at gunpoint. Jameson squinted and then frowned. "Is that—" "Yup, that's him," Marcus said. Jameson inched forward, ignoring Marcus's questions, demanding to know what he was doing. Not today, he thought. Another black man won't lose his life by the hand of the police. He didn't care that Oswald Green is the one with the gun. All he cared about was the fact that Mr. Green was grieving. He'd lost his son to this very police department no more than 5 months ago. Just recently, the cop who had pulled the trigger, shooting Mr. Green's 23-year-old son 4 times in the back, was acquitted. He may not have his job with the NYPD anymore, thanks to Jameson's father, but that wouldn't bring back Mr. Green's son. In the grieving father's eyes, justice hadn't been served. A murderer only lost his job, while his son would never be able to watch a ball game with him ever again. All because he was afraid of being handled poorly, so he ran. Jacob had never been in trouble with the law. He was a recent college graduate with a good head on his shoulders. "Don't come any closer," Oswald yelled after spotting Jameson moving in on him. "I will shoot." "Stand down," Jameson said, eyeing each cop holding guns on Oswald. When no one moved, he shouted, "I said stand the fuck down." Captain Paul Sutton signaled for his men to stand down, but the look on his face said he wasn't happy about it. Jameson had no authority to make that call, but Paul knew that he was good at his job, and if anyone could help this situation not turn into a shootout, it was Jameson. The negotiator on scene hadn't been able to get a word in edgewise, so he also backed away at the captain's orders. "Oswald," Jameson called out, holding his hands up for the man to see. "There are no guns on you right now. Can we talk? How do I know you won't shoot me like they did my son?" "Who is they, Oswald? No one here shot your son, and the man who did is no longer one of us." "That's not enough," Oswald shouted, dragging the poor man who he was holding the gun on closer to his body. "The bastard should be in jail, not roaming the streets. He's a murderer." Murderer. Murderer. Jameson glanced to his left and cursed. The crowd had grown thicker since his arrival. "I agree with you," Jameson went on, ignoring the yelling happening around him. "He should be in jail. The system failed you, Oswald, but don't let it take you too. Don't let them win." "Them? You are one of them. How can you wear that badge and sleep good at night?" Jameson flinched at those words. He'd heard them before, and he would hear them again, but being a detective had always been his dream. For him, there was no other path in life, but he hated being grouped with the same monsters who killed unarmed men. Jameson was a black man, a proud black man with beautiful ebony skin that made women fawn over him on sight. He knew that without his badge, he was just another nigga to some of the cops on the force, but that would never deter him. Not a man like Jameson. An army would have to take him down before he gave up his badge. That same army would have to shoot him dead before he watched a black man die right in front of him. He could be a black man and a cop. That he was sure of. "I know you're hurting, Oswald, but this isn't the way. Let me take that gun, and then I will personally take you in. I won't let anyone else near you." You... "Are you married?" Jameson asked, changing tactics. Oswald didn't reply, giving him his answer. "Your wife is probably worried sick about you. She just lost her son. Don't drown her in more pain. She needs you." He knew that Oswald had heard him, loud and clear, and when the grieving father lowered his gun, the man he'd been holding hostage took off toward the cops behind Jameson. Oswald leveled a menacing stare at the detective, who he now recognized. "I'm only doing this for my wife." "I know," Jameson said, carefully taking the gun from Oswald and handing it to Marcus. "I'm doing this for her too. Let's get you out of here." "Wait until your father hears what you did," Marcus joked, settling into his seat across from Jameson. "I can see the headlines now. Police Commissioner's son, Jameson Edwards, stands his ground against..." "Marcus! Oh, come on, man. Lighten up." Jameson grumbled under his breath and then slapped a file on Marcus's desk. "We have bigger fish to fry. Like why bodies keep popping up around the city right after Mateo Sr. handed the reins over to his son. Why did they give us this dead-end case? Everyone knew that taking down the King family was damn near impossible, including Marcus and Jameson, who had been partners since making detective almost 4 years ago. Both rising in the ranks quickly after getting their gold badges, going from 3rd grade to 1st grade detectives in just 1 year. "I don't know, but..." "Jameson, you're wanted at 1 PP, Sergeant Minnow yelled from her office. "Someone is wanted by the principal," Marcus mocked. Jameson rolled his eyes and stood to go meet with his father. Before arriving at NYPD headquarters where his father's office was, Jameson walked into Blue Spoon Coffee to grab a fresh cup. He was a regular, and everyone inside knew who he was and his order. They treated him like a regular human being, making this his go-to place. Here he wasn't Detective Edwards, the police commissioner's son. No, he was just the guy who wore a suit and always left a nice tip. The barista who was with a customer spotted him and yelled out his order. Jameson nodded and stood back, glancing around the busy coffee shop. He took in what looked to be a mother and daughter duo having light conversation, and sighed. He missed his mother. She was a bright light in the Edwards household, and her death had shook the foundation to its core. She was the reason Jameson donated to various cancer treatment centers. He never wanted anyone to feel what he and his siblings felt from her loss. "Thank you, Jazzy. This tastes amazing, as always." The sweet voice attached to the compliment caught Jameson's attention. His eyes found the reason his heart had begun to race, and he studied the beauty. First thing he'd noticed was her height. She was short compared to his 6'5" frame, but tall if you compared her to his sisters. What really caught Jameson's attention was the wild mane on her head and the tattoos covering her right arm. The sleeve consisted of colorful, intricate details that Jameson wanted to know the story behind, and when she turned to face him, he nearly lost his footing. She was breathtaking, with her cinnamon-brown skin and sultry brown eyes to match. She had a baby face, and Jameson was almost put off, thinking she was too young for him. "Drinks later?" Jazzy asked, answering his question without knowing. Jameson smiled and took a step forward. Jazzy's eyes caught his movement, and she frowned. "Oh, Jameson, I'm sorry. Here's your drink." She slid his caramel-iced coffee across the counter, and he reached for it. "Thanks, Jazzy." His eyes moved to the goddess beside him, and she was staring at him. "Excuse me, beautiful. My mother taught me better than to reach over people." "Beautiful isn't my name," she said. Jameson nodded and smiled. Amina found herself staring into his soft eyes. He was handsome to her, but she wasn't looking for any attachment at the moment. Not with the mess that had been occurring in her life lately. "Later, Jazzy." She stepped past Jameson and walked out the door. Jameson, shocked at her dismissal of him, stared into the direction she'd gone until Jazzy cleared her throat. "She comes in every day around this time if you ever want to catch her again." He raised an eyebrow. "Giving your friend up to me so easily?" Jazzy shrugged and said, "She could use a distraction." She didn't give Jameson a chance to ask why. Instead, she turned toward the next customer and continued to do her job. Even though Jameson was curious about the woman who managed to catch his attention, he knew he needed to get to his father's office before he sent a squad car to find him. "Better get this over with now," he thought. 2. Amina took long strides down Chambers Street. She needed to get away from the Blue Spoon as quickly as possible before that fine specimen of a man caught up with her. He seemed like the type to pursue someone and not give up until he took everything they had to offer, giving nothing in return. Amina chuckled as she reached her gallery. She'd realized that she was judging someone without actually knowing them again. It was a force of habit when you came from where she did. You didn't trust people right off bat in her family. Instead, you vetted them and then made a decision based on what you found. The thing is, Amina didn't care for what her family did, but she loved them regardless. As the younger sister of Sheldon Black, Amina Black was royalty. The Black crime family were known for being ruthless, but they also minded their business. They may reside in New York, but their illegal dealings were done in the Midwest. With her brother, the head of the family, currently on business in Chicago, Amina was able to frequent her gallery without more than a few watchful eyes on her. She was an art buff, and loved hosting small and large artists in her space. She was proud of her place of business because it was something she'd bought on her own, without using her family's money. The modern gallery was 2,000 square feet, with matte black walls to symbolize her last name. It was different, but so was she. A bad bitch in her own right, Amina never played by the rules. She wasn't to be messed with either. The people in her circle saw her as an angel, a princess, but her father and 3 brothers trained her to be a killer if need be. She could put a man or woman down in a matter of seconds without so much as blinking. Oh, yes. Henley, Amina's assistant and best friend, gushed. Henley reached for the second cup of coffee in Amina's hands and placed the caffeinated drink to her lips. Praise the heavens for this. Dramatic much, Hen? The duo had been best friends since diapers. Growing up in the same world bonded them together for life. Henley's older brother, Jameer, was the black family's head enforcer. Both families had been working together since before the 2 girls were born. You were gone a while. Nothing happened, did it? No, I got caught up talking to Jazzy. Henley eyed her friend, knowing there was more to it. Amina hated how well she knew her. Instead of making her elaborate, Henley moved on to another subject. She knew there would be time to draw out the rest of the story. How is Jazzy? We haven't hung with her in forever. Jasmine, or Jazzy, as they called her, grew up with the 2 best friends, and though they weren't as close with her as they were with each other, she was still a good and loyal friend. She's good, and we got invited for drinks later. Amina busied herself around the gallery, flipping on lights and adjusting paintings. She needed to keep occupied, because the mystery man with the soulful eyes and beautiful dark skin was heavily on her mind. Jameson. Even his name was beautiful to her. "Hello," Henley yelled. "Earth to Amina. Were you even listening to me?" "No." "I'm sorry. What did you say?" "I asked what time we're having drinks." "Are you sure nothing else happened while you were out?" "Yeah, I'm sure." Henley wasn't convinced, but she didn't push the issue. "She didn't give me a time, but I'll send her a text to find out." "Great. Now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about your showing this weekend." Amina nodded. She was excited about this weekend, but her mind was still off in La La Land, and she had no idea how to find her way back. A few blocks away, Jameson was barely listening to his father explain why putting himself in harm's way will not be tolerated. His mind was on his case, but also the beauty from the coffee shop. He would see her again, and when he did, there was no way he was letting her leave without them having a conversation. "Jameson." "Dad, you can't call me to your office like this anymore," Jameson said. Thomas leaned his muscular body back in his chair and gave his eldest son a stern look. It was the one that he'd been giving since Jameson, Jaslyn, and the twins were kids. "That look doesn't work on us anymore." "They're killing us at an alarming rate, son." Thomas feared that his family could be targets because of how much they'd been in the news lately, but more importantly, because of the color of their skin. He wanted to keep his children safe, just as any other parent. It's just too bad they all followed down the same path as him. "They've been killing us at this rate since before camera phones were invented. I can't walk around scared that I'll be next, but I'll do my damn best to protect the next man." "With your life?" "If it comes down to it, yes." Thomas sighed and brushed his hand down his handsome face. He may have looked younger than 45, but he was beginning to feel his age in his bones and back. "This is what I signed up for, to serve and protect. And if I have to protect our black men and women from my co-workers, then so be it. It shouldn't be that way. But it is, Pop. Jameson stood and adjusted his badge. You and Ma raised us right. We know how to handle ourselves out here. I can't sit back and... Be careful. That's all I ask. I'll try my best. Thomas nodded and waved his hand, signaling for Jameson to take his leave. I'll see you Sunday. It's crazy in here, Amina yelled over the music. Henley nodded her head while looking around for Jazzy. Do you see her? I think. Bitches! Amina and Henley turned with wide smiles on their faces to find Jazzy standing behind them. The three childhood friends engaged in a group hug and then turned toward the bar. First round on me, Jazzy exclaimed, waving her hand to get the bartender's attention. After being acknowledged, she focused her attention on Amina and Henley. I'm happy you two came out. It's been a while since we've been able to hang. Henley frowned and shook her head. She hated that Jazzy came from a rival family. It made it hard for them to get together like they'd done in their high school years. Jasmine King was the youngest sister of Mateo King. The King and Black families have resided in New York for over 4 decades. It wasn't until recently, when Mateo Jr. took over, that the truce between the two families was severed. All because dead bodies were popping up around the city, and no one could figure out where or who they were coming from. What can I get you, ladies? The bartender yelled, leaning over the glass bar top. 3 shots of Don Julio, please, Jazzy answered for them. They watched as the young guy worked to get their shots poured. After he finished, he slid the 3 shot glasses their way. Amina, Henley, and Jazzy lifted the dark liquor to their lips and knocked it back, slamming the glasses down once finished. Let's get to our section so we can talk, Amina said, guiding them through the club. They ascended a staircase and walked through an open door into a closed-off section that looked down at the dance floor. Club Envy was owned by a mutual friend, giving them access to the places that most people don't have. Thank God we can talk like normal people now, Jazzy murmured. The music wasn't as loud on the top floor, but you could feel the vibration of the party going on below them. Jazzy looked down at the crowd and sighed. Are you okay? Amina asked, taking up a spot beside her. I ask myself that question every day, but I can't say much. It's just... A lot, Henley finished, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. You know that our family names don't make us love you less, right? And it never will. What our families have going on has nothing to do with the 3 of us. An intense silence followed their declaration to Jazzy. All 3 girls knew that the war brewing between both families would eventually lead to them having to choose. Jazzy hated that it could come to that, because in the end, she'd be alone, while the only genuine friends she had would still have each other. The only thing she had that made her happy these days was her coffee shop, the Blue Spoon. Enough about our stupid family drama. Hen, did Amina tell you about the fine-ass man she met at the coffee shop today? Henley's eyes widened, and she fixed her shocked gaze on her best friend. She'd known that the truth about her behavior that morning would come out eventually, and she had been right. Is that why you were acting weird when you got back to the gallery? Amina shrugged. It wasn't that big of a deal. He was good-looking, and I got the hell out of there before he could spit his whack-ass game on me. Now why does his game gotta be whack? Jazzy asked, laughing. She's a snob these days after... Amina glared at her best friend, and the statement died on Henley's lips. She knew the rules when it came to Amina's ex-boyfriend, Reggie. Now that they were finished, his name was no longer to be spoken. Ever.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?